learn from our mistakes. Talking about coaching better, we had some success last year, but we've had the cocktail hour inside, and we're taking the dinner, the banquet outside, so we'll be able to have everybody kind of in the same place. So utilizing more space there in Celebration Point, but it's exciting because Sonny Dykes, the TCU coach who is winning the Steve Spurrier First Year Coach of the Year award, will be in person. We're also bringing in a Legend Award component where Bob Stoops will be honored with that award, and also the Freshman of the Year award. Drake May, I think a guy that you probably like an awful lot from North Carolina, will be in attendance as well. So it's going to be a big night, and I believe there still are some tickets available. That thing starts at 5 o'clock this evening with the cocktail hour, and then the dinner banquet itself starts at 7. So lots to go on here in Gainesville, kind of the center of the college football universe this evening.
So if anyone's interested in attending this event, what time does it start? And I guess they can go to spurriersgridiron.com, or how do they go about getting tickets last minute?
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have to get you that information. I'm a bad host here, so I don't know the exact login to go get the tickets that remain. But yeah, 5 o'clock at Spurrier's. There is a cocktail hour that begins. Doors open up, and then we'll get started with the whole program at 7. So awful lot of opportunity to not only get a chance to meet some of these coaches, but some of the former players in attendance. Unfortunately, we won't have you here this year like we did last year, but a lot of other Spurrier guys going to be in attendance. Even got some guys outside of the Spurrier era. The Townsend brothers will be there again, and Tommy coming off of his tremendous Pro Bowl season and Super Bowl championship with the Chiefs. So looking forward to catching up with him. I think Patrick Young will be there too. So even outside of the sport of football.
Well, I could have got on the plane if I'd known Stoops was getting an award. We're here in Dallas together. I could have got on his plane.
That's true. I forgot.
I'm sure he's flying. He ain't flying on a damn commercial jet. I can promise you that.
Well, I think he's jumping on board with Coach Dykes. I think right there too.
Yeah, he's right here too. He's right here too. I didn't even think about that. But so Chris, real quick. So what's the new award or the award that Coach Stoops is receiving tonight?
It's the Legend Award. So we're going back and honoring former coaches that won the first year coaching award. Now, obviously, this is just the second year that Coach Spurrier has had his name on it. But Coach Spurrier actually won the award his first year in South Carolina. He won the First Year Coach of the Year award as given by the Football Writers Association of America. Coach Stoops won it in his first year at Oklahoma. So we're bringing back some of the past with the banquets going forward, where we honor some of these winners that had an opportunity to take it home before it was named after Coach Spurrier.
Very cool. Do you have anybody famous hosting this event tonight, or what?
Yeah, we got your co-host, man. Your guy Sean Kelly, voice of the Gators, will be hosting the event tonight, I believe. Actually, maybe not. You know what? He may have actually had his again, bad host. Mike Griffith from actually Dog Nation, representing Football Writers Association of America. I think Sean was supposed to be here. Then I think
he's going to have to probably be in Athens with the basketball team.
That might be the case. We had to move it from the 20th to the 27th, and so it did change up a little bit because of Coach Dykes' availability. But Coach Spurrier, hey, you'd have loved it yesterday, man. We're meeting over at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Me, Coach, Trisha Garzone, who's been running the whole thing, and Coach is writing notes furiously down, trying to get everything squared away, numbering, coming up with his own system. So it was funny to see how he continues to prepare and using those handwritten notes you and I are so familiar with over the years.
Yeah, the handwritten notes with little squares and little diagrams everywhere. A lot of doodling going on. Yeah. All right, Chris, how's the business going? You're obviously a sponsor of our program, Chris Doering Mortgage. We appreciate your support. Let everybody know if they are buying a house or need to call Chris Doering, how they can get in touch with you.
It's coming up on 16 years, man. April 1st will be
that long, huh?
16-year anniversary coming up here. Just expanded the office, renovated the whole thing, so got a whole new, fresh workspace that we're going to every single day, and just appreciate the community here, Gainesville, Gator Nation in general. We're licensed all over the state, so an opportunity to help folks as they buy their first home or move up or move down or refinance, any of that stuff that we can do, conventional, FHA, USDA, VA. able to help you guys out and certainly look at what we do as an opportunity to give back, whether that's, doing some of the stuff to help people refinance into a payment they can afford a little bit more, or helping folks navigate the challenges of being a first-time home buyer. Really is a custom kind of not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's important that we ask a lot of questions and take the time to work as more of a mortgage planner than a mortgage originator. So I'm very proud of the team and what we've been able to accomplish in 16 years, and looking forward to another 16 in this community.
Yep, and that number to call for Chris Doering Mortgage is 352-244-0840. A few more minutes with Chris here, and then we'll turn it over to Seth, Harp, and JC. So let everybody know what Chris Doering does when it's not football season. Obviously, you still do radio for the SEC. And if people aren't aware of it, if you've been living under a rock, Chris works for the SEC Network, does a tremendous job during the football season. What's going on right now for Chris Doering?
Yeah, got just finished my 8th season with ESPN and the SEC Network, and so grateful to have that chance to do what we do there. It does calm down a little bit with the travel schedule, although with spring practice starting up in the conference here within the next week or two, I think some of the teams get going. I'll be busy covering that and calling a few spring games and getting a chance to get out and see some folks around the league. But you're right, radio year-round, get to cover all the SEC sports, not just football, but this time of year, we're talking basketball, we're talking softball, we're talking baseball, talking spring football. So a lot to cover there. And then the mortgage company is definitely keeping me busy, man. Things slowed down towards the end of last year with the rates going up, but with rates coming back down a little bit and activity picking up around the spring selling season, it's a busy time. So I don't get a ton of rest, but certainly enjoy what I'm doing and look forward to getting an opportunity to kick things off again when the season rolls around. It'll be here before we know it.
Yes, it will. Speaking of that, before we let you go, we got to get your thoughts on Gator football. Obviously, Georgia wins another national title. Your thoughts on Florida? I saw where a lot of people predict the Gators have like the 6th or 7th hardest schedule in America.
Yeah,
I don't see that.
Yeah, Shane, I don't, I look at the schedule. I think it probably has a lot to do with the way that Florida starts the season, having to go out to Salt Lake City, and obviously the improvement at the end of the year of Florida State and what that team has a chance to be with Jordan Travis this year in accompaniment with the SEC schedule. And I know you said Florida should beat, Kentucky and South Carolina, but I think if you look over the last, 5 years, Florida's only won 2 of those 5 games against Kentucky, and with Liam Cohen returning to Lexington, I think they have an opportunity to be better than they showed last year. I know I was off the mark with my prediction about Kentucky's season in 2022, but I believe in Coach Stoops' program and what they're building there. And Shane Beamer has had South Carolina overachieve in each of the last 2 years, despite some difficult schedules. So, Florida being a 6-6 regular season team, I don't see anything. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. You look at some of the deficiencies on the defensive side. I don't know if those things are addressed yet. We'll know more after spring. But looking at the SEC schedule and giving Florida wins against teams that they've traditionally been able to handle is irresponsible, I think. So I do believe that Florida has one of the more difficult schedules in the country because of the SEC schedule they play and having to play out of conference opponents like Utah and Florida State. And, I'm worried that it's going to be more challenging task to get back on track and get Florida back to where we're used to seeing them, given where the talent is and given the way the SEC East has improved with Georgia being where they are and Tennessee's market improvement and the improvement of Kentucky and South Carolina. It just it doesn't get easy for the Gators.
No, I agree with that to a point, but there's just no reason. And then you're exactly right. There's no reason that we should lose to Kentucky and South Carolina, those type teams. That's just my opinion. But, yeah. Chris, we appreciate your time. Enjoy the event tonight. And I wish I could be there, my man. But tell Coach and Coach Stoops I said congratulations, and y'all have a good time.
Yeah, I will, man. Thanks for having me. Love what you do on the podcast and how you've grown it, and look forward to catching up when you're back in Gainesville, bro.
Appreciate it, my man. That's Chris Doering from the SEC Network, Gator legend, joining us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. Going to take a quick time out, come back. You'll be joined by Seth, Harp, and JC. They'll finish up the program. You're watching and listening to Podup with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doering Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Hi, Steve Spurrier here. You know, making a reservation at my restaurant is easier than a Saturday afternoon homecoming game against Vandy. You don't have to call or email. Just go to spurriers.com, hit the reservation button, pick a date, a number of guests, and a time. It's so simple, I can do it. In fact, I just did. Maybe I'll see you tonight.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doering Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
With Matthews in the morning is we get your final few days of February. Here started off on the right foot. What do we have in store for you on the second half of the program today? Softball, oh boy, 2 ugly losses over the course of the weekend or over the course of their West Coast trip to UCLA and Oregon. What that means, baseball takes care of business against Cincinnati. Jack, baby, we call it a Jack attack, a Jack trick. 3 home runs on Sunday, and Gator baseball is now in this weird zone. We're going to look at that as well. And also Urban Meyer had something to say that was entirely focused on Ohio State, but I think has some bearing when it comes to the University of Florida. JC is going to join us here momentarily as well. So we'll get his thoughts on these things as we head into what is it's SEC tournament week for women's basketball, who had a couple of big wins back to back as they've tried to build some momentum heading into the SEC, women's basketball tournament. And of course, the men's tournament begins next week. Okay. I wanted to start off with softball first. and then get into baseball. I think that, and this is, the knock on Gonzaga in basketball, I'm going to make a reference to Gonzaga here, is that they don't test themselves enough. The quality of competition that they play doesn't prepare them for the tournament, which is not exactly true because they played in the national championship game twice in the last 6 years. I mean, how many other teams have even been to one Final Four in the last 6 years? So that's kind of a little bit of nonsense, but they haven't won one yet, right? Well, the competition during the regular season is important. It's what separates the SEC in football apart from the Pac-12 in football. It separates the SEC in football from the ACC in football. And I think it's so interesting looking at this from what happened to softball over the course of the last, 4 or 5 days, is not only do they go out west and tangle with some Pac-12 teams, they get dominated against good ones. I mean, UCLA shuts them out, 10 runs them, almost perfect games them. Then they beat Riverside. Okay. Then they turn around and lose to Oregon and almost get no hit when they finally get a hit in the 6th inning that they finally got a hit. So I look at this and I start to ascertain this from where the softball program is. They don't have that dominant pitcher on the mound, A. And B, in big games, gang, they can't hit. They can't. Not against the elite, they can't. But what? I mean, that's 18-0, right? 18-0 against a team that could end up in a team that could end up in Oklahoma, and another team that might end up in Oklahoma. But those are the type of teams that you're going to have to beat to win the Women's College World Series. And Gator softball is still a good program. It's a very good program. But now if you're Tim Walton and company, you see what you need to do to win the national or to get to Omaha and be competitive. Now last year got to Omaha, I keep saying Omaha, got to Oklahoma, win one game, right? Then lose and then lose again. So I was like, okay, got back to the Women's College World Series, but what was the impact? Got there, won a game under the belt. Okay. But this is almost like, again, I feel right now where Gator softball is, it's almost the equivalent of where, let's say, like a, I don't want to say where Notre Dame football is. I'm trying to think of another team that's made the college football playoff the last few years. You're like, oh, okay, well, you're there, but you're not going to win it. Michigan? I mean, it's a little bit different of a layer, but you're going to get there. Do I think Gator softball can end up in Oklahoma? You bet they could. They're going to beat a UCLA or Oregon or an elite team like that? No. And again, it's kind of one of these weird things when you finally get tested on a stage like that, and it's not even competitive. What you take away from it, and what you're able to learn. And what I took away from softball this past weekend, at least on that stage, is that this team, look, they'll finish upper 4 or 5 in the SEC. They'll beat a bunch of teams like 9-6. But on the big stage, not only do they not, it'd be one thing if they were losing to UCLA and Oregon 4-2, 7-3, things like that. But when you're getting 18-0 over the course of those 2 games, again, you got tested, and now it's a test that against elite teams, not so much. So there's that, and that tying into baseball. And by the way, if you got anything for us, you can fire away, courtesy of our Facebook Live questionnaire or question page. Courtesy of Meldon Law, the only official injury law firm partner of the Florida Gators. JC will be joining us coming up here in the span of the next 10 minutes, courtesy of the Titan MRI hotline. If you have a question, fire away on the Titan MRI text line. Okay, so I wanted to talk just about softball out of the gate because we really haven't got to dive into softball a lot at least over the course of the few weeks I've done this, and they got off to such a hot start. And we talked about how great of a start that they had and how awesome it was, and it was, but they finally got tested. Baseball, I wrote Jack Attack, it was a Jack trick. The fact that he hit 3 home runs, the fact that Florida hit 8 home runs against Cincinnati. But, when it comes to baseball too, you should be excited. When you win, you should be excited. But to me, when are we going to find out what baseball is? When are we going to find out? See, this is the problem and look, I get it. You want to get the pitching staff geared up. You want to get everybody into a rhythm. I get the playing of Cincinnati. I get it. I really don't get the playing of like a Charleston Southern. That does you no good. It really doesn't. But now you're starting to get into the grid a little bit here. And the midweek games, they'll do little for you, except, test the bottom part of your rotation, get some guys some playing time and rest some arms. But when's this team going to be tested? In Miami? You think Miami coming up is going to test them? Maybe when you're going to get a gauge. What, LSU? We're going to have to wait that long until we get into SEC play to get a gauge of what this team is capable of, what this team can do. The problem with early season games like this is that when you stockpile wins against mediocre competition, you really don't learn a lot from it. You really don't. I mean, you pick up wins and you notch win. Okay. And look, some of those things are important because you want to pick up games on the big stage to start this season and get the fan base all fired up. But I really don't know what it really means for you at the end of the day. So there you go. All right. Let's see here. What else do we have in store for you? Again, JC is going to be joining us momentarily. Cliff, Neil, Florida State, Seth. Yeah, Florida State, I think is okay. Yeah, how Florida State will be the gauge. JC in the house.
Seth.
Yeah, getting started here. What I talked about Florida softball and their ability to light up teams the first few weeks, but going out and getting tested and failing the test against the competition, the type of competition you're going to see in Oklahoma. But baseball, not in the same breath. Jack hits the hat trick and 8 home runs on Sunday.
Right.
But for Gator baseball, big win. Check the box. Big wins out of the gate. But to me, I'm the same boat with. I look at baseball the same way I look at softball. It's like, okay, I get so much more out of a 4-3 loss to Florida State or a 3-2 loss to LSU than a 10-0 win over Cincinnati. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I do too. Now, I 100%. You're getting tested early. You want to see what you got that can compete with the elite, the top level of the sport. Speaking of softball, what Oklahoma did to UCLA, who they were ranked behind over the weekend, was just very depressing, if you will, because that team, I don't know the difference from one year to the next with those girls. They hit the ball farther than anybody in the sport. And that's the problem right now. Oklahoma farther than anybody in the sport. And that's the problem right now. Oklahoma is, to me anyway, and I haven't watched everybody. I'm just saying, you go out to UCLA and you run rule them on their own, in their own yard, and somehow mysteriously they're ranked ahead of you. It tells me all I need to know about Oklahoma. They're brutal. They're the best team. I think Florida's trying to get there, but offensively nobody compares with them.
Well, Oklahoma and South Carolina in women's basketball are almost
they are the same.
They're elite, and they are.
Yeah. But South Carolina didn't win it last year in basketball. So, but you can't win it every year, right? But she's just I think what stands out for me, Seth, in all sports, but specifically in the spring sports, is the level of consistency you can maintain. And it's hard to do, I think, because I think recruiting is difficult when there's so many opportunities for so many great players to play somewhere. Whereas in football, it has been somewhat centralized. That might expand a little bit. But in the spring sports, man, I mean, from one year to the next, you get somebody that just dominates, and then the next year they fall off, and then they come back. But South Carolina has been consistent. Oklahoma in softball has been consistent. And that is that's the measure of the best right there.
So, I mean, again, as softball starts to gear up and SEC play is about ready to start right around the corner, they'll get into a little bit of a rhythm or a groove.
Right.
The thought on the back of the mind is, okay, is another trip to Omaha, I keep saying Omaha, is another trip to
Oklahoma City,
enough? Is it enough? And this year, that's kind of where we are right now. That's where it sits. Like, okay, you get to Oklahoma City, it's good enough. But with what you saw with Oregon and UCLA to Florida, and then what you saw with Oklahoma to UCLA, you kind of look around and say, oh boy, maybe getting there is a success.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think, it's a good thing Oklahoma's not in the league this year, not at least this year. But I mean, who's to say they're not going to dominate next year and the year after and the year after? But listen, it's a long season, right? I mean, people start to wear down, and wear and tear starts to hit you in April and May. And then you get to the postseason. We'll see how arms are looking at that point and how bats are swinging at that point. But, it's a little early. But I think I've seen all I need to see out of Oklahoma. Jesus. I mean,
pretty solid. Again, you got a question for JC or myself? You can fire away a Facebook Live questions brought to you by Meldon Law, the only official injury law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Also, Podup with Matthews in the morning, a service of QC Kinetics. If you have joint pain in your knees, shoulders, hip, or back that won't go away, you check out QC Kinetics for long-lasting relief. Not surgery, drugs, or downtime. Schedule your free consultation at QC Kinetics, locations in Ocala, now open in Gainesville as well. Okay. I know you got some things that you want to dive into as well. I just want to start off with baseball and softball since we are kind of there.
Well, I mean, Seth, did you see, some of the college basketball games over the weekend?
The beater weekend.
The Florida State game over Miami. Florida State's going nowhere, but they came back from some ridiculous deficit. Kid hit a half-court shot. And isn't that the one, or am I talking about a different game? There was a half-court.
Like 3 or 4 of them because it happened all weekend long.
I was a little preoccupied this weekend, but man, there were some great finishes. And then we had in the NBA last night. I don't know if a lot of people follow the NBA down here, but this Lillard for Portland was 71 points. I mean, and then he goes in for a drug test. It's like, okay, well, this guy is superhuman. He's not real. Let's just check his pee. There's something wrong with him. 71 points. It tied Donovan Mitchell's record for a single game, I think, this season or something. I don't know.
It's ridiculous. I did see something though on that where, you start social media and,
right
now that I am getting a little long in the tooth, I think it's funny. And, the students at the University of Florida, and I always kind of get a kick out of them that, you start to get this groundswell now that, hey, look, somebody's going to score 100 points here in the next few years. No, they're not. No, they're not.
Well,
he got 71 or whatever, or 73, and he still needs 30 more points.
I know,
to get there.
Well,
I saw this number, and it's fascinating. Only 6 times ever has a player scored 50 points or more and a half. Only 6 times ever has a player scored 50 or more and a half. And you have to do it twice.
That's crazy. But then, Seth, look at another team. The Sacramento Kings in 2 games. They played the LA Clippers. The final score is 176 to 175 in 2 overtimes. I mean, nobody cares to play defense. But then the following night, the Sacramento Kings, of all teams, 124 points. So in 2 nights, they scored 2 successive games over 300 freaking points in 2 games. And I only bring this up because it's so rare and it just seems so odd. We don't talk about the Sacramento Kings or Damian Lillard that much or ever, but when you have something like this, you have to recognize just how ridiculous it seems. I mean, it's crazy.
Some of that old 1986 NBA basketball where every game was 140 to 130. A couple things that grabbed my attention basketball-wise. I'm glad you brought up this, but because it was a great weekend scoring-wise. It was a great weekend. Kentucky seems to be heading on the right track, which is good for college basketball. Let's face it, when you get to the NCAA tournament, if they're good, the Dukes are good, the North Carolinas are good, the tournament's more interesting. The thing that I think is that 2 things stood out to me.
Okay.
One, and I want to get to the Alabama frisk down.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that also was, to me, just ridiculous, was Iowa's coach, is it Fran McCaffrey, staring down the official during the timeout, walking over and staring at him face to face.
Fran McCaffrey, yeah.
You can't look, and I get a kick out of it. Sports are entertainment, professional wrestling, I get it, but that's intimidation at its worst. If he's not suspended, you can't do that. You can't call a timeout and go over and just stare get 5 feet away from the official, just stare at him for he stared at him for a good 60 seconds. Like, what are you going to do? This thing that we talk about, like youth sports and how nobody has respect for youth umpires, it goes all the way to the top. And I get that these guys are paid, and I get that you're upset, but you cannot have a timeout in which the head coach doesn't talk to any of his players.
Yeah.
He goes over and stares at the baseline official for 60 seconds. If the Big Ten doesn't suspend him, if the NCAA doesn't suspend him for at least a game, what can't you get away with as a coach?
Well, I was not going to engender any favors from the officiating crews for the rest of the year, I don't think, with that kind of act. And let's face it, that Big Ten tournament's going to be incredible. It's good. That Big Ten tournament, I mean, this is a conference that's probably looking at 8 or 9 teams, and I don't know if that's warranted or not, but you're going to have an incredible tournament. You're going to have an Iowa team that needs to do well in the tournament, and this guy is pissing off the people that enforce rules. I mean, he can do what he wants. His team's not. I don't think the fraternity of referees are probably not going to be too pleased with him. And then as far as this Alabama player introduction thing with Brandon Miller, I can't think of something more tone deaf than that. I don't understand what goes through these kids' minds. I'm not. I was once, as you were, 18, 19, and 20 years old. But my God, I mean, with social media and with everything that's out there, to have that lack of awareness on something, even though it was something they were doing the whole season, is just ridiculous. And I think Nate Oates, still, I didn't think I heard an apology for it. I just heard that it wouldn't happen again. And everybody's on. They are right now Darth Vader. I mean, Alabama is the team everybody's going to hate the rest of the year, and I think they may thrive off that. And it may motivate them to where their attention is going to be focused. And that's a team that if they are with Miller and if they are together and they can put aside outside distractions, they'll be a 1 seed and they'll be a tough out.
I was thinking about this and trying to find a parallel to it. And, in case anybody didn't see what happened, Alabama doing their pregame introductions, the smoke and the haze, Miller comes out high-fiving, and one of the players, essentially frisked him, is what happened. And what's interesting about this is I see the commentary on social media and even hear it. They've been doing that all year. Yeah, so what? Stop. You have a person that's been murdered.
Right.
A young woman that's dead. You have a teammate that may get the death penalty or it may be in prison the rest of his life. And you think this is about everybody ganging up on you?
Yeah,
I don't like that concept. I don't get it.
He needs to be thankful that the school is allowing him to continue to play, irrespective of what legalities are involved. And I do agree with Jay Billis when he said that this kid has rights too, and that the legal process and due process must be followed. They must prove intent. All of these things, I get it. But at some point, you have to realize that, you know what, I'm embroiled in this hot pot of water, and I'm going to lay low and just play the game, keep my mouth shut. When Nate Oates said originally that he was at the wrong place at the wrong time, again, I know it was just at the spur of the moment, but what he needed to say was, we are undergoing through an investigation. The school and the authorities are working with each other to determine how it happened, what happened, and we have no further comment at this time. That's all he needed to say, and nobody would have been killing him over the lack of awareness on what actually happened. As tragic as it was, Nate Oates didn't need to say, well, he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. What he needed to say was exactly that, some sort of legal thing to keep him from getting the heat that program has taken on. That could be good, could be bad, but these kids got to realize that people are watching them, and there's been a tragedy and there's been a murder, and it's horrifying. And I just don't know where their brain is at times when it comes, frisking. I mean, come on, dude, you weren't arrested, but my God.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is that that they said they've been doing it all year, and my whole thing is, okay, why? But even if you have been doing it all year, it's no longer
cool.
It's like this. It's like, and it's a phrase that somebody says, like, "Man, I'm serious as a heart attack." Boy, that has gravity. But if your basketball coach just had a heart attack, you wouldn't say that just because of the time. It's also something. Let's say you had and I've seen this happen before, where teams, remember they used to do the 6-shooter type of thing, that old westerns, and if your school just had a shooting and you've been doing that all year, you stop doing that because it's tone deaf to where you are. So when I see this in the Alabama situation is a prime example of this. And people say, well, he didn't commit a crime. He's being investigated. He didn't commit a crime. You're right. But you don't have to commit a crime to do the wrong thing. And I think sometimes people have a tough concept with that. It's like, well, they're not convicted. Well, look, JC, you've been there. I've been there. I have lost jobs. I have had contracts not renewed at radio stations. It's not because I committed a crime. It's just because, okay, the time is done. This is not working anymore. It's over. So, people have been fired. It's not everybody that gets fired from a job or gets cut from a team is because they're a criminal. It's sometimes that's just the way the process works. So it's not, and this is a great line, it's not mine, it's never the wrong time to do the right thing. Yeah. And as Alabama goes through this, I can only imagine the NCAA's horror of Alabama cutting down the nets in Houston with Brandon Miller winning the most outstanding player award. I can't think of anything that would be more. I'm trying to be close to this.
Well, okay, so am I a bad person for hoping that happens? Because I mean, that's my school, my alma mater. The thing is, though, is that if Alabama as a school, who knows a lot more that's going on than, say, Dan Wolken of the USA Today or Clay Travis about kick, we know what their positions are. This kid should have been, shit canned already. But if Alabama basically folds to the pressure of the media, then they don't appear to be standing up for their players and kids. And that look to other prospective players could be very damaging for their marketability. Whether that's right or wrong is up to debate. More reasonable minds can certainly debate that. But the school has to also defend the people that's representing them to an extent that at least they have gone through some sort of due process, and they are continuing to do that. And they know a lot more that's going on. And again, I'll say this again. If Alabama had any serious doubt about the innocence of this kid with this tragedy, they would not have rolled him out there 5 weeks ago when it happened. And we only are outraged, a week and a half ago when the public hearing took place, because now we know a little bit more, but we don't know everything still. And yet I think the school knows, and the attorney knows, the district attorney and the legal folks know a little bit more than what Dan Wolken and Clay Travis think. So I don't know. It's a bad look. This whole thing that happened over the weekend was asinine. And I just hope these guys get the message.
Isn't it interesting that all the reaction to all of this and all the animosity has nothing to do with anything that Brandon Miller has said? It has to do with what the head coach has said, and it's had to do with what his teammates did. Now, he stood there during the press down. I get it. But Brandon Miller's not the one putting his foot in his mouth, and Brandon Miller's not the one. And I understand they're trying to protect him, JC, but you know as well as I do, once the NCAA tournament starts, the media has free game on people.
Yeah.
You can't hide there. You can hide with your local corn pone. And I live in Alabama for 2. You can hide there, but you can't hide.
But okay, that's true. But the response could be based on lawyer instruction.
Yes.
Simply saying, we don't have anything to add further. We have gone through this for the last month. There is nothing to add. If there is, and developments, update themselves, and we have more information, you will be the first to hear from it. But at this point, we have no comment. And then just shut the hell up. Yeah. Just be quiet and don't give red meat to these guys in the newspapers and in the media, because that's what's getting clicks. That's what's
baby. No, I agree. I mean, it's what you think that these institutions, and I've always said this, if the University of Florida, even though I work over in the media side, if the athletic department wants me to come teach their student athletes and everybody involved the correct way to answer questions, because Jason, there's something called the 7 deadly sins of conducting interviews, and there's ways that members of the media, I can ask a question to you to put you in a position where I can get you. I can teach you how to combat those things. And JC, I will do it for the University of Florida for only $500,000. That's the type of guy I am. All right.
Okay.
Pot up with Matthews in the morning. Service of Ruth Orga State Farm. Dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance company on right options for you. Visit ograinsurance.com. 352-240-1779. That's 352-240-1779. I wanted to bring this up to you because I thought it was interesting. Urban Meyer was asked about Urban getting a statue at Ohio State. He said, I shouldn't get one. Cardell Jones should get one. He's the one that led the team to the national championship.
Yeah.
I was sitting here thinking about this, and I wanted to tie this into the University of Florida.
Wait, he said that, Seth? Did he say that, or is that what you said?
No, that's what he said. That
he said that.
He was asked about him getting one. He's like,
okay, well, I give him credit for that.
He's the one that won the championship, not me. And I get what he said. But that's a guy that won a chance. I get it, but I want to tie that into Florida for something different. I start to think about this. Is the only way you can get a statue at the University of Florida for football is win a Heisman?
Well, that's a good question, and I think the answer is yes, because the 3 who did are up there. Yeah. But I wouldn't discount what Wilbur Marshall, what Emmitt Smith, maybe to an extent for the 3 years he was here, but players like Wilbur Marshall and Wes Chandler and those guys, I thought were just as important to their teams, even though they didn't win a national title or they win a Heisman Trophy. Wilbur Marshall was one of the greatest players to ever walk on the field at the University of Florida, and there is no debate about it. And he's in the Wall of Fame. But if we're going to have statue like Monument Park at UF, like at the stadium, like they do up here, I guess there has to be some sort of credential that leads to some sort of championship. But to me, it was all timing. If Wilbur Marshall played when Danny Werfel was tossing touchdowns everywhere, or if Wes Chandler was the wide receiver for the Gators when Rex Grossman was playing quarterback, they might have won the Heisman Trophy. So, I mean, those are great teams we're talking about that they played for, not to dismiss that. But I think there are 2 players that I watched as a Gator fan growing up. Wes Chandler, Wilbur Marshall were the best at what they did in the country, if you ask me. So, and I don't think that's overstating it. Wilbur Marshall was a terror. He was an absolute assassin, and Wes Chandler caught everything in sight. And didn't even have a passing quarterback or offense while he played. So
and it kind of circles back to this whole thing that, look, I get it. You have to have certain limitations because you can't have 16 statues out there. I get it. But if it's going to be that, okay, you have to be a Heisman Trophy winner to get a statue at the University of Florida, then then the only player that'll ever get one will be a quarterback, right?
Yeah, that's the only one.
It's the only way you can get it. So I just, when I saw him say that, I thought, okay, and look, we can get into the debate. Should anything be named after Urban Meyer? Should something happen for Urban Meyer, University of Florida? And the answer is yes, it will happen. It's just a question of what it's going to be and when it's going. And I don't know what it will be, but it will happen. So, all those new apartment buildings that are downtown, those new 6-story facades that take place, maybe the urban kitchen or something like that can exist in one of those, a wing and booze place. But no, I look at it from a perspective of, when I saw that, I thought, okay, well, how's that tie into Florida? Then, I mean, we could make this about should Urban Meyer get anything, but I think we've talked about this, and I know you've talked about this. It'll happen. I just don't know what it will look like. The field's already named after Spurrier. The stadium's already named after Ben Hill. I mean, I guess you could rename the road on the backside of the stadium, but then you have Spurrier. You just did something for that. So something will eventually happen for Urban, because you cannot tell the story of college football at the University of Florida without a couple chapters of Urban Meyer.
No, you can't. I mean, it speaks for themselves. You had probably the most popular and famous quarterback ever play for him. And you had 2 natties in 3 years while he was here. And yeah, maybe unceremoniously he left and then all hell broke loose and fell apart. But I think you have to recognize what happened on the field maybe. And that game against Ohio State where they won in the desert, that first national title in 06, 07, I guess it was, 06. I mean, that was just one of the best games Florida fans could have ever hoped for, coming in as a severe underdog, 7-10-point underdog, something like that, playing 2,000 miles away and dominating the game in front of a national audience. And then we had the win down south in Miami, which wasn't that well played, but it was good enough to beat Oklahoma and Sam Bradford. And so, that happened so soon, so close to each other that has to be memorialized in some form or fashion. And I figured, listen, they'll figure it out. But here's what I want the University of Florida to start thinking about. And I know they're doing it, but I don't know how effective they've become. And that is, can we get out of the bottom tier of the SEC? Okay. That's where they are. That's what they are. The record shows that. And nobody respects them outside. When they go on a game, when they go on the road, everybody's thinking they're going to beat Florida. Let's just ask South Carolina, ask Missouri, ask anybody, LSU. They're not afraid of the Florida Gators. The Gators have to, get this current era back on track, let's say. And
and you're right. I mean, gymnastics is a national championship.
It's great. Yeah.
Tennis is a national championship contender.
Sure.
Track and field, national champions.
Yeah, sure.
So you look at those things, and baseball, softball are College World Series contenders. They're not championship contenders, which is it's something a little bit different. I know we got a couple more minutes here. The pitch clock in baseball spring training, speeding the games up. And was it the Red Sox game that ended over the weekend? Was that Friday that it ended because the pitch clock ran out, or the guy didn't get in the batter's box? I forget who it was. But okay, that's a strike, game over. It's interesting. I don't mind it in those scenarios. I don't mind speeding it up a little bit. I don't. But I'm a firm believer that you should have more time if runners are on base. And to me, there should be no pitch clock if the bases are loaded. I don't want to see a World Series game end because he took his, at that point, we've already been there for 2 hours and 2 hours and 50 minutes. An extra 10 or 15 seconds aren't going to do it. And look, the rules change in football, right? When you go out of bounds in the NFL, the first, 10 minutes of the fourth quarter, the clock keeps running. The last 5 minutes, it stops, or is it the last 4 minutes? I can't remember exactly what it is in the NFL now. So I don't mind a pitch clock. I don't mind speeding things up. But in those situations at the end of the game, I would like to see it a lot more like football where the clock does stop like it does in the NFL.
I see that. I think they're trying to keep people watching it on TV. They're trying to keep people in the stands and not leave in the seventh inning. And I know that the spring training is kind of a dry run for all this, but it's gonna happen. And I think more than anything, I was frustrated, not necessarily with the pitchers, but with the batters going in and out of the box, playing with their gloves, doing their hat, going through the motions. It's almost, there's so much ODD going on in there. And I just, to me, I want to get these games under 3 hours. I just think that's important. And I don't know. I mean, if baseball is going to survive in the sense that these contracts, which are just absurd, but people got to watch this stuff on TV before these advertisers are going to continue to renew up higher and higher and higher. If a game's on every night, you're diluting as hell already. You got to move it on. You got to move it along. And I get what you're saying strategically. I don't like the idea that you can't shift. The defenses can't. The defense can do whatever they want. They want to put 9 guys on the right side of the infield. I couldn't care less where they put their defense. It's up to the batter to get the ball in play. So, some of these things are meant for offense. They're meant to excite the crowds, and they're meant to make the game more fun to watch, maybe, because people generally like offense. The purists like pitching, but a lot of us, like me, maybe you, love offense. We want to see runs being scored, especially for attending in person, because that's what gets the energy going in the stadium. It's not some guy throwing a 2-hitter for the Seattle Mariners. So I don't know. I whatever they could do to get the excitement level higher, I think is a good thing. But when I see Manny Machado signing a 300 something plus, the Padres have two guys with $350 million contract. I mean, the Padres, I wouldn't call them a high market team, but this guy doesn't care. He's spending whatever he wants that owns the team, and God bless him. But this is like, I don't know. I guess this is what the market says.
Baseball's like the NBA, where every penny is guaranteed. So he gets every penny. He gets every
crazy.
As long as you can put him out there in a wheelbarrow when he's 42. He's gonna, So I can't wait to see. Yeah, and with these guys, what'll be interesting is here in 7 or 8 years when they turn 40, whether or not they retire, or whether or not they just hang around and hit 198 and hit 6 home runs and collect their $33-34 million. Now, I will say this about baseball, and it's one of these things that, you have ownership groups like the Pirates owner comes out and says, we can't, I can't compete. But, the collective bargaining agreement was bad for us. We need a salary cap. And, the only way that occurs is if there's a long work stoppage. And even then, the baseball union is so powerful. It's one of those things that, look, I am pro player in almost every sense of the word. I go to watch players. I don't go to watch, we go to watch stars. We go to watch sports. You ever look at the autograph line? Nobody's looking for the backup quarterback's autograph, right? Nobody's looking for the utility infielder, looking for the star. So I just look at it this way, JC. You have owners in baseball complaining they have no money. And then you have all season in which we have eight $250 million contracts. So
it's so outrageous. It's hard to fathom, really. But
I don't have any money, JC. I keep drinking all these cocktails, but I have oh my God, I don't know why I have no money. As somebody drinks another $11 Jack and Coke.
I mean, I get worried about a $350 copay when I go get something checked out. I mean, my God, I mean, I can handle that, but I still think about it, but at any rate, you do. I love March, as you do. And I think the tournament is probably one of the 1, 2, or 3 of my most favorite sporting events to watch over a span of 2 or 3 weeks. And certainly, we've got some real excitement. Unfortunately, not here locally for the team that represents Florida. Hopefully, he'll build this program back because it's been a couple of rough years. I'm just going to tell you, it's been bad. So, I mean, they've got to get it to turn around. If they're Scott Strickland, as an AD, has come in here and done some good things, but the records on the field are questionable. Yeah. Let's just say that.
And I get it. It takes time to develop. I get it. And the thing is, the phrase trending. Well, how's it trending next year in football? How's it trending next year in basketball? What should it be? Florida should be a tournament team in basketball next year. Now, they don't have to win it. You don't have to win the SEC, but they should. A 20-win team, a tournament team in football should be above 500 in the SEC.
They've got to win 8 to 9 games next year for people to get off the for people to not jump off the ship. And basically, there's a lot, believe it or not, there is pressure on a school like this that hasn't won lately that needs to win quickly.
Something I want you to think about, the Gator, and then this is the question for the next show. If the Gators make the NIT, okay?
Yeah, I hope they do.
Okay.
I hope they do.
They win it. Should Scott Strickland of Florida hang an NIT championship banner in the O'Connell Center?
I would. It just represents accomplishment. I don't care if people laugh at it or not. Those players don't laugh at it. They feel great about it. But, I'm thinking to myself, okay, we just went through a 6-7 football season. Anthony Richardson is being talked about as one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks being taken, and the guy can't hit a palm tree from here to there. And I'm just wondering, what am I missing? Something is wrong here. And I think if the NIT is their destination and they go and beat St. Joe's or some team in New York City out of the Big East or the Big Ten, why wouldn't you celebrate that somewhat? Now, I some people say that's a joke, Casey. You're just settling for